Otis culture, fashion and craft.
Hello everyone, you're welcome to Otis Culture. In today's tutorial, I will be showing us on how to make a NIKKA and a matching top. I'll be using this two fabric for today's tutorial. I'll be using the Ankara fabric for the NIKKA and I'll be using this plain fabric for the top. The fabric is cotton material, while this is African print. I'll be using this for the NIKKA, while I'll be using this for the top. So let's move to the work table. My fabric has been folded into two. This is my starting line. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to measure 1.5 inches away from the folded edge. 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. Then I will connect it into a straight line. I'll be adding a waistband to this NIKKA. The height of my waistband, I want it to be 1.5 inches. I'm going to place the 1.5 inches on my starting line this way. Then I'm going to measure my vertical measurements. Waist to my hip is 9 inches. Waist to my crotch depth is 12 inches. The length of my NIKKA, I want it to be 20 inches. Then I'll be adding 2 inches seam allowance, 22 inches. Next is to connect this line into a straight line. This is my hip line. This is my crotch depth. This is the length of my NIKKA. This is the hemming allowance. At my hip line, I'm going to insert my hip measurement. My hip measurement is 50 inches. 50 inches divided by 4 is 12.5. This is 12.5. I'm going to connect this into a straight line. I'm going to find the midpoint of my hip measurement. My hip measurement is 12.5. I'm going to find the midpoint, which is going to be 6.25. This is the midpoint of my hip measurement. I'm going to connect it into a straight line. My waist measurement is 43 inches. 43 inches divided by 4 is 10.75. 10.75 divided by 2, almost 5.5 inches. So I'm going to place my tape. I'm going to measure it on the left and I'm going to measure it on the right. If you measure, the total length is going to be 10.75, as you can see. Next thing to do, From this waist measurement, I'm going to connect it to the hip line. Then I'll move over to this place. From this waist measurement, I'm going to connect it to the hip line. My thigh measurement is 32 inches. 32 inches divided by 2 is 16 inches. I'm going to measure 16 inches. This is my 16 inches. I'll extend this line to meet the 16 inches. Then with my French curve, I'm going to connect it to the hip. The thigh measurement is usually divided into 2. That is why I divided it into 2. Whatever length you want your kneecap to reach, mine is my knee, and the circumference of my knee is 22 inches. I'm going to be dividing that 22 inches into 2, which will give me 11 inches. Because I have this plumb line, I'm going to centralize the 11 inches into the left hand side and into the right hand side. I'm going to be inserting 5.5 inches on the left hand side and on the right hand side. In total, it will give me 11 inches. That is what we did on the waist measurement. So I'm going to insert 5.5 on the left, 5.5 on the right. In total, it is 11 inches. So with my leg curve, I'm going to connect from the crotch to the length of my NIKKA. Connect from the crotch to the length of my NIKKA. This way. Then from the length of my NIKKA to the hemming allowance, I will connect it into a straight line. I'll move over to the waistline. I'm going to measure 1 inch downward this way. I'm going to connect it from this 1 inch. I'm going to connect it to the waist. So before I cut it out, I'm going to add ½ inch seam allowance on the waist to join with the band. Then by the side I'll be adding 1 inch seam allowance. This is why I measured 1.5 inches away from the folded edge at the first instance. So I'm going to connect it. So the next thing to do is to cut it out. This side. For the back bodies, I folded the fabric into two, as you can see. Then I placed the front bodies on it. So the next thing I'm going to do for the back bodies, I'm going to cut out exactly the shape of the front side. I'm not going to add seam allowance on this side at all, because I've already added 1 inch seam allowance to the side for the front bodies. If you are not a plus size, you can make use of 2 inches, but if you are a plus size person like I am, please make use of 3 inches for this crotch extension for the back bodies. So for the waist, I'm also going to add 3 inches extension. Connect from this 3 inches extension, I'm going to connect it to the front waistline, exactly the front waistline. Then I'm going to measure 1.5 inches on the waist. I'll move over to the hip line. I'm going to measure 2 inches. Then I'm going to connect from the 1.5 inches to the 2 inches. Then from the 2 inches, I'm going to connect it to this 3 inches extension. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to measure 2 inches. 2 inches. 2 inches. This is the same method I normally use for my trouser. If you are drafting it for your trouser, all you need to do is to extend from this knee measurement straight to your ankle. The next thing I'm going to do is to cut it out. Then for the side, I'm cutting exactly the shape for the front bodies. I'm just following the shape. No seam allowance added to the side. This is how I draft for the front and the back bodies. This is the back and this is the front. This method, I'll be adding a zipper to the side. As you can see, the front is together. I'm going to take to my sewing machine. I'm going to sew 1/2 inch around the crotch area. I'm going to do the same thing on the back bodies. I'm going to take to my sewing machine 2 back bodies together. I'm going to sew 1/2 inch round the crotch area. Then I will show us the next step to take. I've sewn it. As you can see, I sew 1/2 inch round the crotch area for the front, and I also did the same thing on the back. As you can see, I sew 1/2 inch round the crotch area for the back. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to open it up this way. This is the back. This is the right side of the back. I'm going to place the right side of the front and the back together. I'm going to measure 7.5 inches for my zipper length. What I normally do for my NIKKA and my trouser is that before sewing it, I will take my time to pin the sides, to pin the crotch area, to make sure that everything fits in properly before taking to my sewing machine to start sewing it. As you can see, I have not sewn it yet. I only pin it down and everything fits in properly. As you can see, I only pin the sides. I pin the crotch area. As you can see, it fits in properly, and this other side. Then I will now take to my sewing machine and I will now start sewing them together. I just said I should quickly show us before sewing it together. I've sewn it together. As you can see, everything fits in perfectly. So the next thing to do is to cut my waistband, fix my band, and also fix the side zip. This is the final outcome of today's tutorial. As you can see, it is very easy to make. This is the back view. We've come to an end of today's tutorial. If you found my tutorial helpful, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel down below if you've not done so. I upload weekly tutorial on my channel. Also remember to click on the notification bell so that whenever I upload a new video, you will be notified. Until I come your way next, please stay safe and remain blessed. Bye.